Ukraine
Yeah.
foreign minister made a clear message to the NATO meeting, saying that my demand is like three words basically: weapons, weapons, and weapons. So is NATO ready to provide more weapons or more advanced weapons?
I think, as your guest said, we have a long history of sending weapons to Ukraine, and due to the fact that NATO is actually led by United States and its strategies coincide and correspond completely 100% to United States strategic plan, I think that we are in a new season of military neo-Keynesianism, where United States and some European countries are happy to invest massively in arms race in order to contain our economic structural crisis and problems. So now there is, on one hand, the exploitation of this crisis for economic purposes, so selling weapons as a way to support an important part of some countries' industry, above all in the United States and its affiliates in Europe, and then selling weapons in order to prolong conflict and crisis in the middle of Europe, in the core of the Eurasian continent, in order to in this way to reduce the power of Russia at a certain extent, to erode and take away Russian resources also through military action. And so the perspective of keep selling weapons will go on, will go forward. There is no way to reduce this selling, and this is terrible for common people that reject this approach, but actually is taking place and will create further problems in Ukraine and in Europe. And obviously there is the risk always behind the door, the risk of expanding this conflict. We hope will not happen, and there is the interest of the United States to furtherly cut the relationship between Russia and the rest of Europe through a prolonged crisis in Ukraine. This is crazy, and European Union, if European Union had a real independent strategic policies, we will never accept this status quo, this situation. But actually, we are completely subordinated and enslaved to strategic projects of the other part of the Atlantic Ocean.
Mm-hmm. Well, Fabio, briefly, obviously there's a real war going on in Ukraine, and also you have an economic war, financial war against Russia, and now you have a diplomatic war. How worse the relationship can be between the EU nations and Moscow. Remember, if you think about the security of European nations in the future, you cannot ignore the existence of Russia, a big neighbor over there.
Of course, this is completely consequential to what I was saying. Actually, idealistically speaking, but also very pragmatically, European Union must coexist with Russia, hopefully in a peaceful way, due to the fact that you cannot change the materiality of geography. And so Russia must be our partner in spite of this crisis. We have to work to solve, also through criticism, obviously, to solve this crisis in order to reconnect our space and to restart important and vital business for both sides. This is not, our interests are completely different from United States, not only because strategically speaking, United States has its own domination project and policies that are really destabilizing the world since 90s until now. Once I was not joking, I was saying that in 90s, United States, US NATO system started to make proof of third world war. And now we are at the end of this process where Ukraine was a basic, fundamental target, for example, suggested by Brzezinski. Already in 2003, I remember, if I remember well, Brzezinski was saying to the administration in the United States, do not target and waste money and weapons in Iraq, but please look at Ukraine. That is the core part of our strategy to really finally contain Russia and also Chinese rise. So they are happy to block globalization. It's part of the strategy. We can find clear sign in the official documents of national intelligence in the United States. They are supporting the failing economy through military neo-Keynesianism, as I said. And now European Union has a completely different, must have a completely different perspective. That means having a regional security architecture that is sustainable for both parts. Like when we have done a partnership, a NATO partnership between Russia in 90s and European Union, we have to find a new way outside NATO of an independent security architecture where the security concern of Russia are equal to the security concern of different areas of European Union. This is the only reasonable and wise way to look at this crisis, how to overcome, not through weapons, not through multiple sanctions, because there are not the material conditions to have a really effective sanction to block Russian government choice to enter in Ukraine for as a consequence of previous civil war in Ukraine, NATO's drills in Ukraine, NATO's support and training of neo-Nazis and extremist people. Look, it's the arc of instability from Ukraine to Hong Kong. In Hong Kong, you had members and representatives of Azov and Svoboda parties, a military group